This is Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. On the show, you'll hear from innovators in the food space. We'll have disruptive conversations with people from around the globe who are taking the lead on topics like food sustainability, ending world hunger, food security, and so much more. I'm your host, Paul Newnham. Hello and welcome to this special Best of 2025 episode of Future Fork. As we reflect on an incredible year of episodes, I wanted to share 3 standout interviews that really captured the essence of what this show is all about. In today's episode, you'll hear from 3 remarkable guests who are reshaping our food systems in their own unique ways. First up, you'll hear from Chef Sammy Monsour, who takes us on a journey through Mexico's ancient maize culture. He shares his profound realization about how food activism is creating sustainable pathways for chefs beyond the kitchen, and his passion for teaching the real story behind what's in their food. All right, let's get into it.
I think one of the coolest things that I'm seeing right now is that food activism is providing chefs with a new path outside of the kitchen. At a certain point as chefs, no matter how good we are, if we don't start to try to figure out what life outside of our restaurants are, we live a very unsustainable, stressful, unhealthy life for the most part. There are some chefs out there that are so good at it that they can do it all. But for people like me and people that I really look up to and that I try to study and follow, being able to be a good food activist and a good chef, if you can get your business on lock right now, right? Like my kitchen in LA is humming right now. I'm not there. I'm with you in Mexico City trying to learn more so that I can make better choices for that restaurant. So the fact that I don't need to be there anymore means that I've been able to empower more of my people, give them more promotions, teach them how to be the executive chefs and the sous chefs, and I can be out here in the world and still make a living.
That's a great way to see that. And I think being able to balance that, you've talked about the many roles chefs play, and you've been able to take some of your advocacy to Capitol Hill, to the Food and Agriculture Organization. In Rome, we've been there together. You know, there's been lots. We're now in Mexico. You've been, I know, to Norway, lots of other parts. What's been one of the most rewarding things that you've done in your food activism journey? What's something that you're super proud of?
It's everything, man. It's every time somebody asks me to participate in something that I think is just truly incredible. It's all so rewarding. Like seeing a message from you and asking me if I wanted to come to Mexico. I mean, this is really important stuff. This is equally as important as it was when you asked me to come to Rome, or when I got to go to Norway and Chile, or when I get to go to DC, and being around those people that are in the room and learning from them. It's all just so important. And it's like a privilege to get to be in that, to be in the room and to be at that table.
We're in Mexico. We're here at a place called Cimet. What's something you've learned here? Tell us a little, so people know, what are you here in Mexico? Obviously we've had some tacos, but what's this been about? What's kind of mulling over in your brain? And I know you're in the middle of it at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I just had told one of my chefs in LA who's a Mexican-American. I was telling him about the experiences I've had thus far here. And I said, chef, it's like, I know we hear this a lot, but being here and walking around and seeing and smelling and touching and tasting, it gives you another level of understanding and appreciation for starters, how ancient this culture is, but also how amazing their civilization was thousands of years ago and what they were able to accomplish through agriculture. And that there's these amazing restaurants. I mean, when we went to La Gruta today, I'm like, this is like what Dan Barber was doing at, who's ever heard of this place? You know what I mean? So they're not doing it for the PR, they're doing it for the community and for the culture. And what I'm blown away by is how many delicious tortillas I've had, right? Like it doesn't all boil down to a taco, but it's like, okay, we're in a vault with over 26,000 varieties of maize. Then we go to a lab where they're creating different masas based off different varieties of corn here at Simit. I go, wow, that's amazing. I'm like blown away. But then we go to another restaurant and they're doing the same thing. They're growing their own corn in their field on their land to try out different tortillas. And then we walk right up and there's 3 different, distinctively different tortillas that we get to try. Like this is just going on right now. Like blown away by it, because if you hear like a little bit of this right now in LA, people are blown away. It makes it sound like it's not happening anywhere else. Like if an LA chef is like, oh, he's getting like some really interesting corn from Mexico that nobody's got. And it's like, it makes it seem like nobody gives a shit about that here. And he just knows like some oddball, but it's like, no, these people here take it seriously and they're like heavily involved in it with the science and the agriculture all the way to the plate.
Scientists and chefs have so much in common, I guess, in the way that you're testing, you're learning, but you have slightly different objectives, but also united outcomes. So it's kind of cool.
Right. Well, but even yesterday we talked about some scientists, and it's more common that they're part of the food system, but they can become disconnected of the final result. So it's great to bring them to the table and remind them that food is delicious. Yes. And a great meal can shift a path. It can have ripple effects that aren't necessarily measurable. And then they go back and they look at their work with a bit more, I think, relevance, right? So it was unexpected that they're going from the farm and the field in the science lab all the way to, cool, we got all of this, but like, is it going to make a good tortilla? And these are our standards. I want it to do this with it and make sure that it doesn't crack. I need to be able to roll it up. I need to be able to fold it in half, because they're like, it doesn't matter. All of that stuff we've done so far, it could save the world. But if it's a bullshit tortilla that's going to fall apart in my hand, we need to keep trying until we check all of the boxes. I mean, and that is dedication to excellence at the highest level.
I was so impressed to see that here at Simit and to just see that connection, but then also to see the openness to bring in chefs and to celebrate and to think about all the ingredients. I mean, they're not only working just with maize and wheat here. There's sorghum, there's beans, there's millets, there's all this other. And I think, you know, the diversity of diet is something I've also really appreciated seeing here. In terms of challenges facing our food system today, as a chef working across the world, being based in America, what do you see as the biggest challenge?
There's so many of them, right? You find the challenge that pulls to your heartstrings. And I think that public education means a lot to me, because people that I work with and that have been on my team are like my family. And so I see the importance in giving education to the workplace to provide value to the job beyond just financial compensation. And so when I started to do that and peel back the layers and see some of my guys coming in with like a little bag of Doritos and a Coca-Cola as a snack, and I tell them like, you know, you can eat anything you want here, anytime you want to, and it doesn't cost you anything. And they're like, yeah, that's cool, but they still want that. And that's okay. And I don't have any problem with that. But so what I started to do was do lessons on why those are delicious, and also to do lessons on when you walk by these ingredients, maybe they're never on your prep list. And so you don't work with the maltodextrin, or you don't work with the tapioca starch, you know, or you don't work with the citric acid. But if you start reading on the back of your package what's in your food and you learn why that's so damn good, you can actually make it. Those aren't the ingredients that are making the chip bad. It's probably the oil that it was fried in and the genetically modified crop that the dough was made from, right? And so I think that if people knew, because the common thing that I see is like, oh, there's all this stuff on the back that I can't pronunciate. And it's like, well, those are hydrocolloids and spices. Those are ingredients of the modern molecular kitchen. And like, if I told you gelatin was in this or pectin was in this, most people would go, oh, gelatin comes from animal bones and pectin comes from orchard fruits and berries. Those are organic, right? But xanthan gum or agar-agar, that's a chemical, whatever. It's like, no, xanthan gum comes from sugar, agar-agar comes from seaweed. These are all stabilizers, they're jellifiers, etc. What's wrong with this bag of chips is your GMO corn that has been modified to be laden with chemicals its whole life. So it's growing through herbicides and pesticides in a soil void of nutrient, which produces a crop not only void of nutrient, but like grown with chemicals. That's what you're eating. Dude, eat the fried corn chip. It's delicious, but find the good maize. So I think if we can do that through public education, cool storytelling, not food shaming, that's how we do that. It doesn't matter what your class is or whether you're a vegan or a carnivore, this is something that can help everybody make better informed food decisions.
What's something that you would say is really important that you maybe wish you had been told, or a piece of advice that you'd been given?
I think that I was so lucky to be given tons of great advice. The biggest pitfall that I fell into that could have ruined my career was I got into severe alcohol abuse. I'd never done cocaine. I've never done hard drugs. But it's easy if you kind of only have one vice to justify it. So I would say look out for substance abuse and place your health first, because that was the big mistake that I did make. But the things that I think helped me out as well was to protect my passion at all costs. So if I felt like I wasn't happy with what I was doing for an extended period of time, I would leave. I will never force myself to work somewhere that made me miserable for years, because what happens to people is they just leave the industry altogether. You have to protect your passion.
Now for our second guest. I had the privilege of speaking with Cherrie Atilano, founder of AGREA in the Philippines. AGREA is an agro-social enterprise creating replicable, one-island economies that achieve zero hunger, zero waste, and zero insufficiency through sustainable agriculture and inclusive business models. She takes us through her remarkable journey from growing up on a sugarcane farm to becoming a champion for agricultural transformation. You'll hear Cherrie share how discovering a green book on bio-intensive gardening at the age of 11 sparked her lifelong mission. Let's dive in. You've been teaching farmers since you were 12. How did that happen, and how has that shaped your path?
I grew up in a sugarcane farm, but I think I shared it with you. I never used sugar since I was 15 years old. That's the little activism I have because I feel like sugar is not sweet. It's so bitter because of the environment I was growing up, where sugarcane workers are really living in a very poor condition, earning very little amount of money, and peasants and tenants of the land. So in the sugarcane farm, my father, who was also into sugarcane farming, unfortunately died when I was 3 years old, pretty early. And my mom became a single mom of five children. So I'm the youngest, and then my elder brother was only 13. So imagine how our mom would really make sure we can all go to school. So she put me in a scholarship center because my mom said the only way for me to get a college education or university education is to be in the scholarship center every weekend to finish my high school and to also get like a full scholarship in university. So, but then when I was in the scholarship center, the first day they said, okay, you need to start, learning home economics, basically domestication, which I'm not against. I love it. So you need to learn how to cook, to crochet, to embroider, cross stitch, everything, and then there are weekends you need to learn how to plant vegetables because if you cannot afford to go to university, you can be a domestic helper of big houses and rich people who owns truckloads of land and sugar mills. I went home, was crying because I said, oh my gosh, my mom has a huge dream for me. I have a huge dream for myself. And here I am. I'm trained to be a domestic helper, which is not wrong. It's a decent job, but I feel like I can do more. And then my mom said, "I'll just go back. At least you learn how to do, domestic work." And but I love to read. So in that scholarship center, there's a book. It's green color. It's called Big Bio-Intensive Gardening. And the book says it was so fascinating, really, for an 11-year-old. The book says if you're poor, 100% of your income goes to food. 70% rice, 30% your partner with rice, or we call it ulam in the Philippines. And that 30%, if you plant vegetables, very simple, if you plant vegetables around your house, you boil your rice or you cook your rice, you put your vegetables on top of the rice, and it's a meal, it's a complete meal, and you just plant a vegetable outside your house. So I feel like, wow, it's the best solution to poverty, and it's the easiest solution to poverty. So I went home, I asked my mom if I can, teach farmers in the sugarcane farm. And yeah, history, and then that's it. That's my life for 29 years now.
Amazing. Have you still got that book?
I don't have that book, but actually, I keep researching for that book, and there's no online that time. But I found the author. He is now in his late 70s. I'm actually, he's an American scientist in the Philippines who developed that. Yeah, now he's here in the Philippines, and we might meet, and I want to write that book for children.
Your work now, if we fast forward, is creating zero hunger, zero waste, zero insufficiency model through AGREA. What does that look like in practice? How is this 11-year-old and this initial, inspiration graduated now into the work that you're
It's
doing?
fascinating how to implement it, right? Because what we do in AGREA, it's called like a one island economy. It's because of, I think, sometimes you get an idea out of irritation. I live in Makati, in the central business district of Manila. Metro Manila alone, we are around 14 million people. So you see, we're top notchers in terms of traffic, pollution, and noise, and both, including air pollution. So because it's so congested, there are so many people who are in Manila. But if you go to the countryside, which I was able to travel a lot because of my work with agriculture and the government before, there's so much empty lands and empty, opportunities. But it's just like you need to go back to the countryside and you need to build these opportunities. And if you want to build these opportunities, definitely it's agriculture, because there's land, there's water, there's a lot of resources to work on.
How do you help connect farmers to market and finance? So it's through that contract side, but talk to me a little bit about the financing as well.
We work with several rural banks in the Philippines. Right now, we're working with a larger bank. It's called Land Bank. We're working on the program on how to even onboard the farmers. Because to be honest, most of the farmers we work with, they don't even have birth certificates. So if you don't have birth certificate, how can you get the bank? You don't even have an ID, right? An identification. So in terms of that, it's actually not a chicken and egg based on operation, and based on experience. Because most of the time, a lot of banks, they don't want to help farmers because it's too risky. They don't know how to pay. They don't know banking system. But at the same time, we work with the farmers. They're not the stupid people on the planet. They're actually very intelligent. They know how to survive. So what we do, like last January, I was actually doing the needs assessment of the farmers. We assessed like 1,000 farmers, and around 10% of them, they don't really know how to even hold a pen properly. So what we do is, with this needs assessment, we really identify how to help them better, how to include them better. Because sometimes we have this blanket solution that we feel like everybody's intelligent, we feel like everybody is, well read and well written, or educated. But most of our population, especially in the farming sector and the fishing sector, they're not. So we do a very deep needs assessment, and we really assess them, like how to even start, having a card, an identification card, so that they'll be accepted in the market and they will be part of the financial institution. So it's a very difficult work to do. There's a lot of patience, but it's the most fulfilling part. Because imagine if this one farmer, who doesn't even know how to write and read and receive the first bank account and an ATM. It's so powerful, Paul. It came to a point that our company would even issue them an ID. So the farmers that we're working with, especially the women farmers, we issue them an ID, signed by me. Unfortunately, they're like, they're like part
Yeah.
of my they're like part of my company.
The idea of sharing.
Yeah, they're part of my company. They work with us in the supply chain. They're not suppliers, they are partners of AGREA. So we call them farmer partners or farming community partners. And then once we issue them an ID, we help them get banking as well. So we partner with some rural bank. In 2021, we first partner with a large bank in the Philippines, a banco. It's a rural bank that we designed their financial literacy just for farmers and fishers. Very specific because it's a different crowd. And then we helped them. We brought the machines on the farms to list the farmers digitally in the banking, to take picture of the farmers for their ID so that the banking will identify them. And at some point, Paul, you need to just put your risk. I think that's a challenge being a leader and an entrepreneur, because if there's no guarantor, they couldn't have access to this financing institution.
So tell us a little bit about the ecology of dignity approach. Is this part of this?
So in AGREA, we actually have two institutions, separate entity legally. So we have AGREA Agricultural Systems International Inc., which is the business side. That's the supply chain business. It's also the side that's doing consultancy. So we do consultancies for mayors, congressmen, governors, or private companies, how to better their supply chain, how to do their food security and nutrition master plan for their cities, municipalities. So that's the side of the business, and that's the ecology of dignity. So it's our mantra of our company, because I feel like sometimes it's actually, I feel like, oh wow, this is like not the normal mantra of a company, right? It's like dignity is such a heavyweight kind of responsibility you're taking as a mission of the company. But for us, it's necessary because we feel like not only in the Philippines, but globally, that farmers are always the ones indignified. They are always the most vulnerable. Climate change, they're the most vulnerable. When changing patterns of prices from fertilizer, fuel and everything, they always like the most vulnerable. They take it hardly, right? So in the ecology of dignity in the company, we always make sure that we are working with farmers true and true. That's the reason why I was telling you in our contract growing, we really listen to them. We teach them how to negotiate. We teach them how to price better. And normally in that process, we also work with a city or municipal agriculture office and to be witness on how we work with farmers, that the farmers are not abused, in the process, right? They are respected and dignified, and they're included in the participation of the creation of the contract. So hand in hand, it's really about how to make the farming family as the core and center of dignifying our food systems. Because I feel that it's easy for us to, disrespect the farmers if they're not dignified. And in that process, that's why our system is so broken, right? There's so much unfairness. So for us, with this ecology of dignity, the ecosystem, we're always building alliances and ecosystem, how the farmers would thrive, how the supply chain is not transactional but transformational in the process.
So you mentioned climate change. How is climate change affecting the food space in the Philippines?
For the last 3 years, I think Philippines is the top notcher. We're number one in the World Climate Risk Index. So we're number one climate risk country because we have 7,000 plus islands, right? And we're so open to the Pacific. So we always experience severe drought. I remember last year we experienced 6 months to 7 months of drought. And then after that, huge precipitation, rainfall, and we have 20 to 21 typhoons in a year. So imagine how the farmers are navigating that and trying to survive in that aspect. It's really difficult actually for the farming communities. That's why more and more, even in our nonprofit, we try to work on some organizations. That's why I have a nonprofit, because somehow you just need to do blended financing. You need to do like sustainable financing on how some of the risks can be covered, right? So that's why our nonprofit, the AGREA Foundation, we work with different international organizations like the UN and also the government, where the training component for the farmers are run by the nonprofit. Once they're trained, they're ready for the market, then they were helped by the agria business for their market linkage and proper logistics. So these two are helping, because if the company will run everything, which I did when I started. I trained the farmers, everything. My goodness, Paul, I'll never be financially stable, right? So because training of the farmers alone takes 40% of our revenue, and that's not good. So with the foundation, we do a lot of blended financing to work with the government on training the farmers, work with INGO on implementing some of the innovations, they're developing to be adapted to farmers. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the role women play in transforming food systems.
The last 3 weeks of my life has been celebrating in so many farming communities. We have 1,000 women food producers association members. So in this one, what happened to this is Philippines before we are only divided in land mass, big shareholding of land owned by very few families. And then agrarian reform happened. The land titles were actually named after the husband of the farmers. So in 2017, my foundation, AGREA Foundation, was invited by the Congress, one of the head author of the Magna Carta for Women in Agriculture, invited us to facilitate a roundtable, how to review the Magna Carta of women in agriculture, both farming and fishing. And we found out women are not invited in training. It's because their names are not appearing on land titles when the reform happened. So it's always their husband who's invited for training, their husband always invited for financial inclusion programs, things like that. So in 2017, we said we need to change this. And we did a lot of series of roundtable discussions and work with Congress and Senate, It's a lot of work. And now more and more women are actually included. They're changing the land titles. So now the land titles are being reviewed that women should be included because it's pretty evident globally that when women are in microfinance, they're the best payer in terms of microfinance. They pay 95%. So when we talk about innovation and financing and inclusion in farming communities, and you talk to the husband, you cannot materialize that unless you talk to the women. And then in that aspect also of Magna Carta, during the review, it came out that women are always just extra farm hands. They're always considered as extra farm hands. They've never been considered as, hands on the farm that could help in increasing the income of farmers. So when during the review process, it's very legal. It's very, done because you need to submit it to the Congress. And when I was facilitating that entire roundtable, if you talk about the economic poverty threshold level, it's so hard for them to graduate from that economic threshold level because there's only one person earning income in the family. Even rich households, you do like two people, breadwinners, right? They're having both incomes. But in the farming and poor communities, only one breadwinner. And mostly the wife is stuck at home. Of course, they do care work and things like that. So we said to graduate these communities of farming and fishing from the poverty threshold level to overcome that is to have really two people earning income.
And for our final highlight of 2025, you'll hear from Elizabeth Nsimadala from the East African Farmers Federation. EAF is a non-profit regional network representing 25 million smallholder farmers across 10 Eastern African countries, advocating for farmers' interests and building their capacities through policy work and trade facilitation. Elizabeth takes us through how farmers are reclaiming control of their own value chains across Eastern Africa. And she shares the innovative e-granary platform that puts farmers at the center of their markets. Let's take a listen.
To be able to become service agents in terms of implementing different programs, but also to have the capacity to unlock those resources. When you look at the African challenges, especially when it comes to issues of food and the import bill, as farmers, we have a role to play in terms of reducing this import bill. We are over 50 billion US dollar.
What do you think is the biggest game changer for doing that?
I think the biggest game changer, again, is to invest in farmers, but also to increase financing for the agriculture sector.
Okay.
But when you look at the African continent, how many of our countries have actually allocated the 10%. When you go down to the details, you realize that actually they haven't allocated 10%. So it's important that our countries live to their commitments, allocate these resources to the agriculture sector, because it's the backbone of Africa. It employs more than 70% of our population. So it's a sector that cannot be neglected if we are to transform Africa as a continent for the East African countries, because usually they read the budgets on the same day. But you realize that most of the countries were allocating between 3 and 4%. But in some cases, they would have special projects for different countries. So it's important that as countries, they also come up with flagship projects that can help in terms of reducing the continental import bill.
One of the things, obviously, I think the last time we met was at CGIAR Science Week, which is, all talking about science and innovation.
Yes.
What role do you feel science and technology plays in this investment and this engagement? Are the science and technologies that are being developed helpful for smallholder farmers? How are they being applied? What opportunities are there?
Yeah, I think with science and technology and innovations, it's now the way to go. You can create impact at scale without embracing science and technology. But there's also challenges that maybe need to sort of be addressed if we are creating more impact. And I'll start with issues of data, which is very critical if you're to embrace technology. When you look at what is happening currently, it's like everyone wants to be a data expert. Everyone wants to collect their own data. So there's no data convergence. Because they have their own data in silos. Or most actors do not listen to farmers. We generate primary data. Everything starts with the farmers. So for me, I think what should be happening is that whatever data that is being collected by other actors should be building on the primary data of the farmer. So we should be having that sort of layering. And then secondly, when we talk of technologies, most of these are donor supported. Actually, we have few countries that are supporting their domestic or homemade technologies. But what is the situation is that most of these technologies are supported at the pilot stage. And the projects are usually between 2 to 3 years. And after the end of the project, the technologies have not reached a level where they can make a business sense to the farmers. So in so doing, after the end of the project, so everything just stops there. Whatever investments that have been made become white elephants. And actually, when you move around, you see a lot of those. And it's also partly because most of our development partners are not investing in the scaling. So we stop at pilot, and there's no scalability. So I think for me, what should be done is to profile most of those technologies that are working and see how to put them to scale. And let the development partners invest in the scaling. And finally, with regard to technology, is the farmer-led technologies. I mentioned about the e-granary model by Eastern Africa Farmers Federation. This is a model, for example, which we've tried. It is farmer-led, it is farmer-generated, it is farmer-benefiting. It has been tried by the farmers. We are comfortable with it, we've piloted it, and it is making a business sense. But how many of the development partners are ready to invest in it? We've tried, and we are not finding partners to invest in the technology. So what we are seeing is instead partners coming in with their technologies. They are not co-created with the farmers. In fact, they're bringing the technology to the farmers. And because they don't carry the farmer lanes, so after the end of the project, still they cannot be sustained because the farmers don't trust them. They don't trust those technologies. And it's also because these technology developers are selling a service For them, it's a business. They're selling a service to the farmers. Under the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation, we represent 25 million smallholder farmers.
Amazing.
These are members of 25 national level farmers organizations, cooperatives, commodity associations, women and youth farmers associations in the 10 Eastern African countries.
So how has your experience as a smallholder farmer in Uganda really impacted and helped you to think about what's needed in the African continent to really address hunger and malnutrition and I guess income as well, like the opportunity for people to come out of poverty?
My experience as a farmer, of course, back home has been around access to financing, farmers having challenges when it comes to access to financing, access to information, access to markets, access to certified, both in terms of seed, in terms of fertilizer, and other services generally like insurance, logistics.
So is that access, what's the reason for the lack of access? Is it affordability? Is it availability?
So it's in different shapes. One is around affordability.
Yeah.
It's around access. Yeah. It's also around the enabling environment for the private sector to thrive, to support farmers. What we did as an organization was first to change our orientation and where a private sector lanes, where we are putting farmers at the center of controlling their entire value chain. I know the story of Uganda and East Africa region is not different from any other country in Africa. And we have middlemen who are coming in to even buy crop when it is still in the garden, when it is still flowering. So to put an end to that was to really see how do we empower ourselves as farmers to take control of the entire value chain. And part of the things that we did was to embrace technology and digitization. So we came up with our e-granary platform, with our e-platform called e-granary that works from the market backwards and that offers bundled services in terms of addressing the challenges around input access, seed, fertilizer, in terms of access to services, the insurance, financing, irrigation, and so forth, but also the market, where the market is, and be able to find that buyer who can give us a forward contract. And once we have the forward contract, the beauty with it is that it has a floor price. So this gives an assurance to the farmer that after you producing, you will already have a ready market for your product. So far profiled 250,000 farmers on our platform. We know where they are, we know the size of their land, we know their production capacities per season. Then this data also helps us in terms of understanding their production demands, but also in terms of predicting what they are able to produce. So with this data, we are able to aggregate their demand for inputs, and then we walk to the supplier of the inputs, and we are treated as a distributor. So in so doing, we earn a discount as an organization, but also the farmer is able to access such inputs at a reduced cost. With our current strategy, after doing all that, so we said now the focus was more on systems, on the cooperative, on the association, and now we needed to move now deep to the individual, him or herself. So you realize that our current strategy is on enhancing smallholder agriculture's rewarding investment opportunity. And we are pushing for scaling of aggregation because that's the concept of us as farmers associations and cooperatives. But then how do we put it to scale? How do we leverage digitization and put it to scale? How do we work around policy? Because ideally, as an institution, our core mandate is also around lobby and advocacy. So how do we move from doing just general policy advocacy to doing focused value chain policy and advocacy based on the challenges that we are facing as smallholder farmers? And again, our organizations, how do we make them sustainable by, building their capacity through institutional capacity strengthening? And of course, we also work around various cross-cutting themes on youth, on women, and most importantly, on climate change, because we know it has no borders. Everyone has been affected.
So we were climate adaptation?
Yes, climate adaptation, I must say. And actually, we've done a lot on climate adaptation. We've met several times at the UNFCCC COP meetings in Sharm el-Sheikh, in Dubai, in Baku, and we are also already we've already done our roadmap for COP30 for Bahrain. What we do as an institution mainly is to help our constituency, our farmers, to understand these processes, but also contribute to the processes. The actors tend to forget that as smallholder farmers, collectively we are the largest private sector. And we are the largest investors when you look at the amount of resources that we are investing in the agriculture sector. And I think that is the recognition that doesn't come out. Probably it's because we've not done some good math to look at how much investments we are making in the agriculture sector as farmers. So it's important that
that's
we
an
recognize
interesting
the
perspective.
contribution of farmers.
Yeah. And I think when you think that way, it changes the starting point, I guess, for the conversation, because it's a different dynamic. You're all of a sudden coming as both bringing something to the party rather than,
Exactly.
It's been a pleasure talking. One of the things that I like to always do at the end of interviews is talk a little bit about food.
Yes.
And we both like good food. We have lots of good food memories. I've talked to you
for
about
all.
different food. Exactly. When we think about food, there's a lot of those memories connect. They're sometimes good, there's sometimes bad food memories, there's sometimes not even about the food, they're about the people. One of my food memories, I remember I used to travel a lot, and as a kid, we didn't have a huge amount. And when I would go to my grandma's house, she would always treat us. So she would always have something special hidden. And I would run to the kitchen, the pantry, and I'd find, and often she would have this chocolate sauce that you put on ice cream and it goes hard. You knock it and it goes hard. And she would give us a bottle each of this for the grandkids. And then we would have it and we would keep it very protected, hide it in the house so no one knew where it was, because it was a special treat.
Yes.
And I just remember that was something that made me feel special. It made me, I knew my grandma was always looking out for me because she got this. But that food memory is something that I remember, and it was something that, is part of my childhood.
Yeah.
When you think back on your journey and food, what's something that jumps out to you? What's a food memory? It may be something you've eaten recently or in the past, but what's something that you absolutely love?
A lot of food.
Yes.
I don't know whether I'm particular on any, but what I remember very well, growing up, like you mentioned, you would run to your grandmother.
Yeah.
Even as especially personally, when I was growing up, our grandma was the best chef. Cherrie. She would prepare sweet potatoes.
Okay.
In a clay pot.
Oh, wow.
And the way she would prepare it is that we call it katogo.
Okay.
Katogo is a mix of, sauce and food. So the sweet potatoes, she would add beans.
Okay.
And prepare that mix. And then she would, I don't know how she would do it, but make sure that all the sauce dries up. And then those that are at the bottom sort of like get burnt.
Okay.
Yeah, so every time, so she would prepare it like today, then tomorrow morning, it's what we would use as a snack.
Oh, wow.
Whenever we'd be going to the farm. And I know we'd even have a fight to make sure that we eat that burnt
well, it becomes
potatoes.
almost the sweet potato. The sugar would have gone a little bit sticky.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
It's very...
Exactly.
Oh,
so it was usually very interesting.
Like caramelly almost. It's like the potato when it gets... Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's very tasty.
Yeah, very tasty.
And with the beans, it must be...
Yeah, with the beans.
Yeah.
And it really creates a lot of memories.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Delicious. Well,
Yes. And then again, also, I come from a banana and coffee growing region. So we have a lot of bananas. And especially when it came to the yellow bananas, our grandma also used to, she would keep yellow bananas for like weeks. So every time we wanted to eat this, I would call them the sweetest yellow bananas. You'd go to him because for them, they would like overripe.
yeah.
Yeah, and she would keep them for the grandchildren.
Very
She would
sweet.
know every time they're coming to visit. So every time you go there, the first thing she serves you would be the yellow bananas, the millet porridge, fermented one. We call it bushera.
Bushera.
Yes, it's
Okay.
fermented millet porridge.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining me on the show, and thank you for all the work that you do.
You're
Keep up the
welcome.
great work, and it's exciting to see. And I hopefully we'll continue to work together around the world.
I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. Future Fork is produced by Disruptive Consulting Solutions and supports the SDG2 Advocacy Hub. For more info, head to the website futureforkpodcast.com. This show was produced with strategy and production support from Wavelength Creative. So you don't miss an episode of Future Fork, make sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Paul Newnham, and I'll see you in the next episode.